Hello, everybody. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on a pouring day here in cloudy Chattanooga, Tennessee. Absolutely raining. If you are on the roads, please stay safe. May I take this time to remind you that you can find us all over the internet. We've got you covered on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Search Hot News Talk Radio. We are the first thing that comes up, and you can be able to interact with us. You can listen to our classic episodes. Never call them old. Never call them old. On YouTube, and you get to see what we look like as I stare vacantly into space and talk about sports. If you really want to know what Russell looks like, then I also suggest that you tune in. You want to hear what we sound like on your mobile device? Take us anywhere you go. The Tune In radio app on the Apple Store and Google Play Store. It's absolutely free. Search Hot News Talk Radio. Give us a follow. Press play, and you can have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. Now, here's the thing. All right, there's a lot to talk about today in sports. I personally like that the College Football Playoff Committee puts out the rankings on a Tuesday because it makes Wednesday really happy. Thursday, you get to talk. We've got Bill Bender on. You know, Thursdays with Bill. We talk to Bill Bender, the Sporting News National college football writer, joins us every week. And we've also got Thursday Night Football. Tennessee Titans play the Jacksonville Jaguars. So there's that for tomorrow. But Wednesday's a scary day in the sports week. Because there's not like a ton of things to speak on in the middle of the week, and you just hope that you can make it through Wednesday. Wednesday's rough. Tuesday's kind of rough too, but like Tuesday, you've still got enough football lingering. Monday Night Football was the night before. You don't really have that same luxury on Wednesday necessarily. But hey, we got to talk some SEC basketball yesterday. Talked Ben Simmons and LSU, and Kentucky played Duke last night. So some SEC basketball talk is now in order. I'm not going to get too much into that because it is just the beginning of the season, but Kentucky and Duke, that's obviously a huge game to start it. And Kentucky takes that one, and I'll give you my thoughts on that coming up in a little bit. But I'd like to talk about these college football playoff rankings because they're interesting. And here's the thing. Like, the thing that I keep hearing over and over and over again is that the College Football Playoff Committee puts out these rankings, and these rankings don't matter right now. They don't matter. And I keep hearing that, oh, they don't matter. It only matters in the end, yada, yada, yada. Wasn't this the problem before we had the playoff system? Was that we'd end up with two people for our national champion, and we had no idea how they got there? Like, you were undefeated and you were in a big conference. Yeah, you're definitely there. But we had no idea how you got 1 and 2. And if two people have the same record, we were just left in the dark, you know, as to who gets to be in front of another person. And there were computers and there was a coaches poll. And like, we didn't understand what was happening. I like that these rankings come out every week, and this is the third one now since the College Football Playoff Committee has been putting them out. I like it, and I like the transparency that we have. I like to be able to see how the sausage gets made. I like to see the process here, and to say that it doesn't matter right now is absolutely silly because the conversations that we're having from this are conversations that matter in the end. Like, they're conversations that matter now. We don't necessarily get to figure out how they matter until the games actually get played. But make no mistake, the conundrums that we are seeing in the college football playoff rankings, we need to be addressing these now. And we need to be able to see what the committee is doing and what they're thinking right now. And every time they release new rankings, there's some things that'll make you scratch your head. TCU falls back in the rankings despite winning against Kansas. Now, is that them being punished for their win against Kansas not being a highly destructive and explosive win? Because everybody has been walking through Kansas like they're made out of paper mache, and TCU just beat Kansas like Kansas was a good school. They're not. We know this. Okay. College hoops, absolutely. College football, never you mind. Okay. So we get that. But there's a transparency that we'd like to see with TCU falling back. Like, where's the committee at? Questions that are getting brought up right now. Okay, is the committee hold serve, right? We've got the top 4. stays the same as last week. Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, Notre Dame stay the same. Iowa even stays at number 5. So nothing changes there. But we have some different things now. Baylor loses, so they lose their 6th spot. They drop all the way back to 10, and they're replaced by Oklahoma State, who continues to win. Oklahoma follows Oklahoma State at number 7. Florida is at 8, and Michigan State is at 9. And it's interesting to me because here's the thing. The Big 12 is the thing that can ruin this whole thing up, right? Like, Notre Dame is not in any conference, but they've played a lot of pretty tough opponents, and their only loss is to Clemson in the rain. And their quarterback, Deshaun Kaiser, keeps going out and finding ways to win football games. Do you put Oklahoma over Notre Dame because Notre Dame looks good? Oklahoma looks stronger right now. Okay, they handled pretty well a very explosive Baylor team. Okay, and you've got explosiveness all over that Baylor team. Every wide receiver, Coleman and Cannon, all of those guys are freaky athletic and freaky fast, and they got contained against Oklahoma. But Oklahoma lost to Texas, and those Longhorns are bad. Can Oklahoma jump Notre Dame? If both schools win out, should Oklahoma jump Notre Dame? Because the common opponents there, Notre Dame destroyed Texas. Oklahoma lost to Texas. Does Oklahoma get to jump Notre Dame? That's an interesting question to me. Because the quality of that loss is pretty bad. That's a pretty bad loss, losing to Texas. Now, it's a rivalry game in a neutral location. That changes a whole lot of things. Like, those are factors that you kind of have to tweak and work with, but I don't know if they should. I think Notre Dame ought to stay on top because they have beaten a common opponent. That's just me. And I wonder if the Big 12 doesn't get punished for one thing that the committee keeps saying, and it's a very vague thing. It's a very vague thing. The committee continues to say it over and over again. They're looking for a complete team. This is from the first week when they released those rankings. It still holds relevant because they're trying to make it very clear. They want a well-rounded team to be. They want a well-rounded team to be the represented in the playoff. Basically, they want a team that's good at offense and defense. And if you're a Big 12 person, your feathers are all ruffled up because your conference is not known for their defense. But you know what conference is? The SEC. Florida looks like a more well-rounded team than a lot of those Big 12 schools. The TCUs, the Baylors, the Oklahoma States. Only Oklahoma really looks well-rounded right now. This is the College Football Playoff Committee a couple of weeks ago on how they are scaling these rankings.
What, Jeff, do you think is the most significant thing in terms of football judgment, people in the room wanting to watch the teams on tape as opposed to looking at their numbers? What was the most influential thing in football judgment?
If I understand your question, I think it's the balance of their team. You know, we have teams that are just one-sided offensive teams or one-sided really strong defensive teams. So that combination of offense and defense, and then, you know, how they've played offensively and defensively in those games. So sometimes that's probably the hardest thing to judge, is some teams that have very explosive offenses, but we haven't seen their defenses tested.
And that's
all right, Jeff.
That's the College Football Playoff Committee on ESPN a couple of weeks ago when they first released their rankings on how they're trying to identify what teams deserve to make it. They're kind of doing the eye test. And this is AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm talking about the College Football Playoff rankings. Again, every week there's some huge splash being made and some head-scratching things that you see on a weekly basis. And I get it that there's the committee keeps saying this, ESPN keeps saying this, people in our area, local shows keep saying this, that none of this matters until the very end. And I would disagree. All of this matters for the purposes of transparency, because we're talking about Oklahoma possibly jumping Notre Dame, Iowa at number 5 is still undefeated. If they win out, they've got as good a shot as anybody, and they really just deserve to jump into that number 4 spot if they win out. Like, really, from here on out, it's about if you handle your business, because a lot of these schools will be colliding into one another, including Florida and possibly Alabama. And that's going to shake up a lot of things. If Florida wins out, they can get in. Even though Bama's probably Bama's the best team in this conference and deserves more to get in than anybody else. If Florida beats them, Florida would get in. And I don't think that the way we have the one-loss situation right now, again, unless a lot of weird wins and losses occur, you're going to have a couple of 2-loss schools. This is the only way that you would get 2 SEC schools in, because there's already this like of the Southeastern Conference, in my opinion. I just don't see the same love for the SEC that we're all talking about with the Big Ten, for instance, where the Big Ten, the concept of the Big Ten having 2 schools in, that doesn't worry anybody. The SEC possibly having 2 schools in, and that's a big if. I understand that. I understand that that's not a gimme by any stretch of the imagination, but Alabama and Florida are 2 teams that I think are good enough to be in there and good enough to represent the best of college football. And why wouldn't they be? Why wouldn't they be? So Florida hangs around at number 8, giving themselves, for all the world, a shot at this. Okay, I can't help but think that it's a little comforting there. And for Alabama's probably not going to lose the rest of the way out. I mean, Saban has got this team running at an incredibly high level. They've got chips on their shoulders. People probably buried them a little bit too early when they lost to Ole Miss, because that's a bad loss. Like, if we're going to be completely honest, every single week that we see Ole Miss play, that loss that Alabama had to them looks worse and worse and worse. So yeah, Alabama got buried. I mean, no disrespect to Nick Saban, but yeah, they got buried. As they should have been. They didn't look good. And Ole Miss keeps looking worse. Ole Miss keeps looking worse and worse. But, I mean, these rankings, and not just the stuff that's at the top, these rankings continue to bring head scratchers back to back to back. You've got questions like Michigan and Utah, and USA Today's got a great article on the questions that arise from these rankings. George Schroeder, a great article, because, I mean, every week there are some questions where you're like, what are they thinking? How does the Big 12 get positive feedback from the committee is one question, because what happens to the Big 12 determines what happens to everybody after them, including right now, Florida, the Big 12, or what happens ahead of them to a team like Alabama. If the Big 12, because the way all of those teams have aligned themselves right now, they could all end up as 2-loss teams. Do you leave the Big 12 unrepresented if they're a 2-loss team, and somewhere along the way, Alabama picks up a second loss? If they pick up a second loss to a team like a Florida, which the committee's got some standards and stipulations that they have to how they select teams. They want well-rounded teams, good offense, good defense. They want quality losses. Your Alabama, say you lose to Florida in the SEC championship game. Is that a quality loss? That is a quality loss. And if you're a 2-loss team and everyone in the Big 12 is a 2-loss team, all of those contenders, the Oklahoma State, Baylor, and let's just leave TCU in there for just the case of argument, then which 2-loss team is of the highest caliber? I would argue then Alabama and Florida out of those teams, because they follow we're better at offense and defense, we're well-rounded, and we have quality losses. And possibly you'd have some quality losses out of the Big 12, but you wouldn't have well-rounded teams outside of maybe an Oklahoma who really lost to Texas and I think really ruined themselves. Like if they had lost to anybody else. But Notre Dame smashed Texas thoroughly. And that's what part of it. This is brought to you by Rick Davis, Gold and Diamonds. Do you want to have some special gifts for him or for her this holiday season? Go to Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds. There's a total store sale now, up to 50, 60, and even 70% off on designer jewelry and gifts. And if you have something to sell, bring your gold, your silver, bracelets, rings, diamonds, jewelry to Rick Davis. He will appraise your jewelry personally and pay you the cash himself. Cash, cash, cash. Get some today at Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds. You're listening to AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio Clutch with Keon Rose. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on Kentucky Duke. Coming up here in a little bit, more on Clutch with Keon Rose.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
I love my Flex loan from Advance Financial. I needed cash, I needed it fast, and I didn't want to get a payday loan. My Flex loan from Advance Financial is not a payday loan. It's a line of credit. I only pay for the cash I need, and I only pay for the time that I need it. There's no lump sum payment. My Advance Financial Flex loan is an open line of credit, and I can get cash anytime I need it.
Visit one of our 24/7 locations and get the cash you need today. Advance Financial. Welcome.
Tired of insurance companies? Tired of doctors that won't spend time with you? Do something different. Leave the sick care model of medicine and come to Dr. Danielle Mitchell, the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health, where we're interested in long-term health solutions, not the quick fixes. Come see me, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, at the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health. I'm all about the long-term healthcare solutions and doing what's best. On the web, you can find me at ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. That's ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Or call us at 875-1005, 875-1005, or find us on social media, Facebook, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, or the ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Let's go, y'all!
Hello, I'm Sheriff Jim Hammond with the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office. Everyone knows training is important, especially when it comes to training our local law enforcement. Effective training helps keep our officers proficient and able to respond to a multitude of events to keep the citizens of Hamilton County safe. In order to support our local law enforcement and make sure that they have the tools necessary to train and do their job, the Aegis Foundation of Greater Chattanooga is actively trying to raise $70,000 in our community to purchase a state-of-the-art visual firearms training simulator. The training lab is an interactive firearms simulation system that will help local law enforcement consistently train for a variety of life-threatening situations that they face each and every day. Training tools like this are not cheap. If you or your company would like to donate and help support the Aegis Foundation's goal to purchase one of these machines, please contact 423-886-1850. Once again, please contact 423-886-1850.
This is America Now with Meghan McCain.
President Obama makes Jimmy Carter look like Napoleon Bonaparte. We have a president that leads from behind, and when America doesn't lead, bad things happen.
Meghan McCain, weekdays at 7 p.m.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Costa, host of the Costa Report, every Sunday at 9 a.m. My guest this week is former Congressman from Ohio, Dennis Kucinich, who says a Department of Defense is not enough. The United States needs a Department of Peace, which is committed to avoiding wars. Is Kucinich onto something? Find out this Sunday at 9 a.m. on the Costa Report, right here on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Areas of rain and a few storms will march in from the west for the afternoon. Still very breezy, and some of that rain will be locally heavy for a while as well. Highs upper 60s. Tonight, drying out, lows mid and upper 40s. For Thursday and Friday, lots of sunshine with colder weather returning for the weekend. Join us for a Christmas auction and luncheon to benefit the Media Ministries of Abba's House this Sunday. Lots of great items for your holiday gifts, decorations, and food will be auctioned off. For tickets, abbashouse.com/auction. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Moore.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
What does the committee mean when they talk about a complete team? Because they keep saying it over and over again, and what I'm starting to suspect is that there's not a definition for what that is. That there's not a real, on paper definition for what it is to have and be a complete college football team. And that worries me because we already do so many things that are unscientific in sports that it just makes no sense that we add to that list. We give them the eye test to see if they're a complete team. What does that mean? Like statistically a complete team or a team that just gets it done, right? Because you've got some teams, they're different kinds of defenses. You've got bad defenses, like just horrible, porous defenses that give up yards on yards on yards. I mean, you got those. You've got good defenses, strong defenses like Alabama's. They'll absolutely swallow you up, kill your quarterback, and make sure that he doesn't stand up again. Like you've got those defenses, and then you've got your bend but don't break defenses. They'll give up 1 billion yards a game, but they don't let people in the end zone. And so, like, just giving it the eye test, which defense does your eye prefer, seems like a really unscientific way to put people inside of a playoff. That could just be me, but like, that's a really unscientific way of going about it. The same way that you look at a sport like baseball, and there's pitchers, and used to be that a guy couldn't win the Cy Young if he didn't have a lot of wins. But when you think about how much wins are part of a team effort, a pitcher registering wins, like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, Felix Hernandez is in Seattle. That's a terrible baseball team. He's not going to get a lot of wins. He's arguably one of the best pitchers in baseball. King Felix is one of the best, and he's not going to be registering a lot of wins because his team's awful. So when we start looking at, like, oh, let's just put the most complete team in, I agree that we should put the most complete team in, but I think we should also define what the most complete team looks like. What is that even? We don't have a definition for what that is, like good on offense, good on defense, like statistically, or like actually, like, are we looking at just technique? Are we looking at scheme? Like, oh, their personnel isn't the best, but like scheme wise, they're playing very well. What defines what is a complete team? And I feel like until we get that really answered, I don't think we know week to week what it is the committee's trying to do, because here's the thing with them. One of the weird things about the College Football Playoff Committee, they're not really, like, outside of their weekly rankings, not really held accountable by anybody. And it looks like if they don't like the Big 12, which is what it kind of looks like complete team looks like, oh, they're not, that conference doesn't play defense very well. Like, that conference plays touch football. Then what's to stop future committees, because it's not going to be the same committee year after year after year, and they're all going to have their different criterion. Like, what's to stop future committees from being anti-SEC? Like, what's to stop future committees from being anti-Alabama in the future or anti-Tennessee in the future? What's to stop that? Nothing. There is nothing. Like, we're just gonna sit there and watch the committee speak in code for, we don't like that conference very much. And that doesn't make any sense to me. Now, obviously, I'm a little up in arms because I'm a Big 12 guy. I'm not too up in arms because I'm also a Texas guy. Texas is terrible. But I'm saying, if I'm an SEC guy, that worries me a little bit, because if next year's group of people deciding who makes it into the playoff doesn't like the SEC, and you've got a bunch of 1-loss, 2-loss teams here because they beat each other up, you mean to tell me that that's going to be okay with you? Like, Tennessee's got a shot, and whoever it is that doesn't like the SEC is going to keep them out because there's nobody that holds them accountable for that outside of us just kind of sitting here and watching? I'm really glad they put the rankings out every week, so that way we can see how the sausage gets made, like, just to see what goes through the process. We're not going to see the whole process. We don't know how they vote, but at least week to week, we don't get just like at the end of the season, we don't just get 4 teams and we're just all like, what? Okay, and like there's nothing like this in sports. The NCAA basketball tournament is too big. It's too huge to the point where the teams that are getting snubbed are Middle Tennessee State, Eastern Michigan. Those are the teams that are getting snubbed in the NCAA tournament. Not schools that are actually good. The schools that are actually good, sure, you can argue some schools deserve to be a number 1 overall seed or deserve to be a 1 seed or something like that. But like they're in. With 4 teams, you're possibly leaving a very good, very talented football team off of that list. And the reason for it is arbitrary, just it passes the eye test. I don't know. Seems sketchy to me. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me. I'm Keon Rose. The roads are wet. It's very cloudy. It's starting to get dark. It almost looks like night. Like it looks like it's about to be nighttime in 30 minutes. That's weird. But make sure that you turn your headlights on when you're driving. Drive safe. If you don't have to drive anywhere, I suggest that you stay off the roads, please. And you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Search Hot News Talk Radio. We'd love to hear from you. Mr. Judd and I, every Thursday, we go through our college football picks. And I encourage many of you to put your picks up. Just put them in the comment section. You don't have to go through all the games, maybe just the ones that matter to you. Just interact. My Twitter handle is @SportsCloud. And I tweet during games. I tweet during most events of things that are happening. And I have pretty odd opinions. And sometimes, not always, my Twitter is very funny. Just tossing that out there. So follow me @SportsCloud. I'd love to hear from you. If you got a question, you just want to say that I'm a buffoon, whatever the case is, lob that one out there. I'm cool with it. I can hang. I can handle. That's all I'm saying. So I was watching the tail end of Kentucky and Duke yesterday, and I've got some takeaways from that game because it was, that Kentucky team's good. And I don't see why they can't win the national title this year. Because first off, here's the thing about Kentucky that I think a lot of people overlook, which is that for whatever reason, people don't like John Calipari and they don't like the one and done ways that he's gone about in his quest to, I don't know, win. For him, he always says every year winning is getting his players into the draft. I think that John Calipari would like an actual title. His players are getting into the draft. Okay, his players are getting into the draft, into the lottery, year after year after year. Okay, I understand that that's the thing that he's going to say, but let's be honest, John Calipari wants an actual title. I think this is the year that he gets it. Tyler Ulis, Kentucky point guard, 18 points. And you know what? He was an amazing floor general yesterday. Absolutely controlled the tempo of the game. And when he needed to step it up, he did. When he needed to slow it down, he did. He just did whatever the team needed, and I really like watching him play out there. He's a good player, and he's a sophomore. They had a big game out of Jamal Murray as well. Jamal Murray, 16 points. And I think that the narrative with Kentucky is year after year after year, they've got new talent coming in, but a lot of their very good players are upperclassmen, or at least not freshmen. Okay, they've got most of their starting lineup is freshmen. Jamal Murray, Isaiah Briscoe, Marcus Lee is Marcus Lee is a junior, and Alex Poitras brings in he brings 7 rebounds off the bench and 9 points. He's a senior. So, I mean, this narrative that Kentucky is all freshmen. Yeah, I understand. Skyle Lasbury. He's going to be, I don't even know if I pronounced his name right. Wow. I mean, I'm looking at the thing on paper and I'm like, Lasbury, Labissiere. I mean, that's, boy. But anyway, Marcus Lee, Isaiah Briscoe, Jamal Murray, those guys are freshmen. But Poitras, Lee, Ulis, these aren't freshmen. These are the leaders of your team here. And any time that they needed a rebound in those last 3 minutes, Alex Poitras was there with the tip in. Like, he kept Duke from rallying back because the missed shots and second opportunities that they were able to corral, all Alex Poitras. He's a Kentucky team that's deep. They're always deep. Every year they're deep, but now they're deep and they've got some upperclassmen experience. It's one of the things that I think people overlook from the way that John Calipari is recruiting, which is that he recruits a lot of players who are going to be in college for a year. Yes, you've got your one and dones, but you've also got the next level of guy that isn't going to be able to start his freshman year under John Calipari. And you know what? He's gotten guys to buy in. Some of them will stick around to wait their turn. Tyler Ulis certainly did. He wasn't going to really crack the lineup last year, but he's doing a dang good job this year. So I'm a huge fan of that. The Atlanta Hawks have gotten off to a pretty solid start, but they have lost their last 3 games in a row. 90-88 loss to the Brooklyn Nets, who are absolutely dreadful last night. And one of the things that's interesting to note about Atlanta is I think they're still looking to try and replace that production of DeMarre Carroll. And I don't know how you fix that up, how you shake that around, but you need a guy who's able to consistently do a lot of really, really good things. I think right now the team is made up of specialists. Corver, specialist. Horford, he's very, very much a stretch 4, stretch 5 type player, depending on where they move him, specialist. Millsap, he's got a mid-range jumper and he plays really well in the post, specialist. Teague is the closest thing that I think that's on that team to a well-rounded player. Schroeder is a driver, specialist. I mean, there's a lot of specialists on that team, and DeMarre Carroll was your Swiss Army knife last season. He was a guy that could do everything. And I don't see that on this team this year necessarily. I haven't been overly impressed with the way that Tiago Splitter has played, and I'm not disappointed either, but I'm not thrilled for certain. And part of that is just like you want to get stronger around the basket, and I don't know where. I don't see that necessarily happening for them. I don't see that happening for them in a way that's a little concerning. And again, the Nets, part of the reason why they're able to hang around in that game is Brook Lopez is abusive around the basket for the Nets. He had 24 points and 10 rebounds, double-double in 35 minutes. Can't happen, but they don't have anybody strong enough or big enough to push Brook Lopez back. And Al Horford played well last night, 18 points, but Brook Lopez had his way down there. Okay, and they're not able to rebound at a very high level. Tiago Splitter only had 3. It's just a very wonky team. Okay, everybody had one of those nights where everybody's scoring, 8, 6, 13 points, and then Horford and Millsap carry, but it's weird. It's weird that you can't rebound or have a player that can consistently rebound. Like teams like that are going to beat you up in the playoffs. Like try running into the Wizards, or I don't know if the Pistons can maintain the surge that they've started the season with, but like a team like the Pistons, that's dangerous. Their ability to rebound the ball. You can't rebound the ball. All of your pacing and spacing and up-tempo offense isn't going to mean anything. Your second chance points will disappear, and your opponent will have a million second chance points. Like you can't play without rebounding. DeMarre Carroll kind of offered that versatility where he could do that. He could also shoot the 3. He had a mid-range game that was pretty nice. He handled pretty well. They're missing that. The Atlanta Hawks are missing that. And I don't know how you necessarily rectify that. I don't know how you fix that. We're brought to you by Rick Davis, Gold and Diamonds. There is a total store sale going on right now. So if you need to get some Christmas gifts for that special someone, up to 50, 60, and 70% off of designer jewelry and gifts. And if you have something to sell, you need some extra Christmas money to buy something for the nephews, the nieces, the kids. Well, you can sell your gold, your silver, your bracelets, rings, diamonds, and jewelry. Rick Davis will appraise them and pay you himself. Cash, cash, cash. Get some today at Rick Davis, Gold and Diamonds. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Are you tired of feeling like just another account number to your financial advisor? Try something refreshingly different. Call Edward Jones Financial Advisor Patrick Neal in Hickson at 870-7894. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Social media, we're on that. Hot News Talk Radio on Facebook, at Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter. Download the TuneIn app and follow us anywhere at any time. AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
UTC on Saturday. They'll be playing Florida State at 3 on ESPN 3. Support the Mocs if you'd like to. They're 8-2, the Mocs are, and so is Florida State. And it's not likely, but I'm just saying, how awesome would it be if the Mocs could trip up the Noles, who are ranked 14th in the nation? Ranked 13th is Utah. They'll be playing UCLA. And Utah is a school that they're relatively unknown. Here's the thing. Like the Pac-12, I don't think any of those teams are going to make it into the top 4. They're basically eliminated. Just the way that they've played each other, the way they've had perplexing losses to one another, people losing to USC that shouldn't be losing to USC, things of that nature, losing to UCLA and Arizona State after they've lost to bad opponents. It's not pretty what's happening over there. And it's funny because people say that that's what the SEC does, that all those schools beat up on each other and then nobody gets to make it in. And that's obviously not happened at all. And it's what's happening in the Pac-12, which is arguably like the next best conference, or at least the next most powerful conference. And I'm interested in the Pac-12, if only because I'm trying to see how they pull themselves together and make any of this look respectable. They look as a conference disoriented. And it doesn't have as much bearing as say the Big 12. Like the Big 12 is also a mess, might I point out. The Big 12 is a massive mess. What is of note with the Big 12 is that they're in front of Florida, for one, and two, they're the conference that we didn't know if they were for real or not. They played a lot of games against a lot of soft schools. Their strength of schedule, the weakest, and now it's strengthening up. They're starting to play tougher opponents coming down the stretch here, and it's not going well for them. Most of those tough opponents are each other. It's not going very well for them. Down there in Baylor and TCU, you have to be disappointed with how that went. TCU falling to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State leapfrogging everyone. And if you're in the SEC, hey, you're just hoping for, I don't know, it depends on whether or not you like Alabama or Florida. I know many people around here really, really don't like Florida. Like, it's not well liked. You would rather Florida fall into the ocean, not just the university, the whole state, because there's not a whole lot of love for Florida State around here either, which I find interesting because, like, I don't see how or why. Like, there's not a rivalry, really. The people don't like Florida State around here. I just think that the state of Florida is just not well liked, which I understand. I get it. I think people around here would probably hate the U of M too, except that they're not good, so there's nothing to hate. I mean, there's just an inherent terribleness that just you almost feel bad for them. You almost feel really bad for them. Tomorrow night, Tennessee Titans take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. I am going to be able to watch Marcus Mariota for just the third time this season. And we were talking a little bit about it yesterday, that the AFC South is bad. It is an absolutely horrible division of football. And as such, the Tennessee Titans have an opportunity to make the playoffs. Their upcoming schedule looks very promising. Okay, they play Jacksonville tomorrow night. They play Oakland, which is a tougher team than in the past, but not impossible to defeat. They play Jacksonville again. Then they play the Jets, and the Jets, I think the Jets beat them because of just how they play defense. And with Mariota's mobility, there might be something they can do there. But in terms of just his youth and handling what Todd Bowles and that defensive staff are going to throw at them, I don't know that Tennessee can do that. The next week, they play the Patriots, which is a stomping waiting to happen. But who knows? Because the Patriots are wounded and continue to be more wounded as every week goes on. Their offensive line is in shambles. Their wide receivers are dropping like flies. Who knows? That Patriots game is probably going to be a loss, but I can't rule it out right now because I have to see what the Patriots look like next week now that they have nobody on the offensive line. Like, nobody. Like, the Patriots would take me at offensive lineman, and I'm 5'10", $170. They would take me, and they would have no choice because there's nobody that can really play offensive line for them right now. They're all injured. It's all injuries there. Then they play the Texans, which is the Texans are bad. Okay, the Texans are just as bad as the Titans are. They only have one more win. Sure, they beat the Bengals last night. The Bengals didn't play very well. And look, Andy Dalton he was due for one of those performances. It's been a while since we've seen that Andy Dalton show his face, and we thought for a second there, hey, maybe this Andy Dalton is a guy, he can be an MVP type candidate. That Andy Dalton, he showed his face again. The Andy Dalton that can only get his team 6 points, that's the Andy Dalton that we were able to see. He showed his face once again. And then, of course, like the little random beef between him and J.J. Watt that just started up for no adequately explained reason. J.J. Watt said that he wasn't the Red Rifle, but the Red Ryder BB gun. And then he took offense there and said something about America's children. And like, what are you doing, man? Like, J.J. Watt and Andy Dalton might just be the two pettiest people in the entire NFL. It might just be. And then, of course, like, they can't insult each other at all. It's all over the top kindness and no, like here's the thing. Cam Newton, somebody sends him a letter for his dance, his touchdown dance, and everyone is chastising Cam Newton for his touchdown dance. Cam Newton's touchdown dance is fun. Like, Cam Newton's touchdown celebration is actually interesting. Cam Newton himself is an actually interesting person. J.J. Watt and Andy Dalton, not so much. Not so much. I don't get it. Like, we talk about the humility of players all the time, and I don't mind humble players. Okay, I like them as much as the next person. But if a person is actually arrogant and interesting, let that person be that. It's okay for a person to be a thing that we don't like. It's all right. But I digress. I move back to the schedule where the Titans end their season with the Indianapolis Colts, who could be anywhere in the standings by the time we reach the end, as Andrew Luck has got a lacerated kidney. Hey, Keon.
The Indianapolis Colts could be
absolutely anywhere, and I don't know where. And
I don't mean to interrupt your show, but
that's fine.
By the way, we're live on Periscope, so if anybody has any questions, they're giving you hearts. They love you.
Well, that's pretty awesome.
But J.J. Watt, I don't know who he is, but Eric Judd just said you're crazy, that he's the greatest defensive something or other player. Or is he true? Is that right?
No, J.J. Watt's a great player. He
said the greatest.
He's not the greatest.
And Eric Judd said you were nuts.
Yet. Eric Judd always says I'm nuts. He's nuts too. I mean, have you seen the things that he picks for the college football picks that we do every Thursday? It's pretty.
Football is that soccer? Is that where you kick the ball?
I mean, that's what the rest of the world calls football, I guess. But yeah, we're talking about American football.
Okay.
J.J. Watt's the best in the league.
Okay.
He's just an old man, and he says "get off my lawn" way too often to other people in the league, and it's annoying.
Well, he agrees with you. Guys can have a love fest. There you go.
Well, there we have it. I don't understand. I can't. There's not a fight there. J.J. Watt is actually the best defensive player in the league, unless you want to go Darrelle Revis, Josh Norman. Richard Sherman got exposed a little bit. The thing about Richard Sherman is not Darrelle Revis. Darrelle Revis will cover your best receiver regardless of what side of the field they're on. Richard Sherman mostly plays one side of the field. So he can't, in my opinion, be the best defensive player. He's a great one. He's top 5. He's just not the best. J.J. Watt is, though. He's disrupting your play every time he gets in to your backfield. The play is either over or about to be. When you see Watt back there, he's just an old curmudgeonly man that says, "Get off my lawn. Don't take selfies before games." And just because he said it to Zach Mettenberger, who I agree shouldn't have been taking selfies before games, that doesn't mean that you ought to just sit there and say it and tell it to the media. I don't know what J.J. Watt is and what his media public persona is aiming for or trying to be. I don't get it necessarily, but sometimes he comes off as very humble, and sometimes he comes off as media hungry, and I don't know which J.J. Watt's the real J.J. Watt. But I digress some more because I was talking about the Titans, and I was bizarrely and rudely interrupted there. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that I find the most interesting about the Titans. Mariota's ceiling is incredibly high. And the whole AFC South, the future of the AFC South is very strong. The ceiling of Mariota is very high. I think that he's top 10 in almost every quarterback statistic in the league, barring passing yards. And that's just, I think part of that is he hasn't played enough games because of the injury to his knee that he had actually being in the pocket. And he's shown incredible progression and incredible development as a player. I like him a lot. And I want to see where he goes, but Tennessee has got to do some things for this guy, put some things around him, put an offensive line around him for one. Give this guy a left tackle. Like literally do that. Find a really big guy to put on the ends of that offensive line. They've got to do something about that. It's bad. He doesn't have a ton of talent to throw to. Give him somebody. Give him a running game. Okay, there's only so much that you can do with Bishop Sankey. Like there's only so much. There's a limit there. And defensively, get him the ball back. I mean, the Titans are just like well-rounded, but like just below average in everything. And the interesting thing is that the Jaguars are looking like they're a team that can start to make that leap in the next few years because of the way that Bortles is developing. And so this clash tonight is basically a clash for the future of the AFC South. The Colts haven't done anything to put anybody around Andrew Luck. They haven't done anything at all. They haven't put anybody around Andrew Luck. There's no offensive line there. Dude has a lacerated kidney. This is his second injury of the season. I mean, he's running for his life. Like, you wonder why Andrew Luck is throwing into double and triple coverage and why he plays like he's got to win it all himself. He does. There is nobody there. They surrounded Andrew Luck with a bunch of nameless dudes and the AARP. There's like nobody there. And then there's Andre Johnson and Frank Gore. They're old. They're old. I feel bad saying it because they were great players in their prime, and Frank Gore, to be fair, defied his prime for a very long time. And Frank Gore on a team with probably a better offensive line, a more mobile offensive line, like maybe he even looks better. But Andre Johnson's been finished for a while. He drops passes that just hit him in his hands. Like it's just bad. You've got T.Y. Hilton and Dante Moncrief, and I'm just like, can you do better than that? Like, Hilton is legit. You can shut him down, but that speed that he has in his hands are really good. Like, that's a legit receiver. Moncrief, I'm not sure on. I'm a little less certain about that guy. And I don't want the Titans to be the Colts, where Mariota starts looking really good, and then we realize that this team isn't built to do anything or go anywhere. I'm interested in seeing how they play against the Jags, because let's face it, these are the teams that they'll be playing like forever. The playoffs go through these teams always. You have to play them in 2 weeks again, and you've got an opportunity to make the playoffs this season. Today's show brought to you by Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds. There's a total store sale right now. If you need Christmas gifts, there are sales up to 50, 60, and even 70% off of designer jewelry and gifts. And if you need a little extra spending money, we can give you that as well. Gold, silver, bracelets, rings, diamonds, jewelry, all appraised with the cash given to you by Rick Davis himself. Cash, cash, cash. Get some today at Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds. You've been listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you in 23 hours.
Areas of rain and a few storms will march in from the west for the afternoon. Still very breezy, and some of that rain will be locally heavy for a while as well. Highs upper 60s tonight. Drying out, lows mid and upper 40s for Thursday and Friday. Lots of sunshine with colder weather returning for the weekend. Join us for a Christmas auction.